Well, convicted felon Mike Flynn spent Christmas tweeting about me, and the results are probably what you'd expect. This disgraced former general and QAnon influencer has said that he reached out to Kash, Patel, and Susie Wiles personally to ask them to investigate and to prosecute me. His reasoning for this? Because some fascist account on Twitter started tagging him in videos that I have been interviewed for, where I'm talking about Mike Flynn and his role in things like the insurrection and promoting domestic extremism and terrorism. In this long online screed that he posted on Christmas, he accuses me of spying, and he is saying that I, as an FBI asset, must be responsible for January 6th because I watched it happen live. He's wondering, how could I have possibly gotten the footage? The domestic extremists live streamed the insurrection. That's where all of the footage came from. So in this crazy man's Christmas posts, he calls me a Marxist, which is an anti-Jewish dog whistle. And the irony here is just unbelievable. My first name is Christopher. It means bearer of Christ. And because disgraced former general and convicted felon Mike Flynn, who's trying to brand himself for the last few years as a Christian warrior and as a family man, he spent Christmas tweeting at me, which has resulted in a bunch of neo-Nazis coming online calling for my execution. A man whose name means bearer of Christ is now being politically persecuted on Christmas because of Mike Flynn. The delicious irony. There are so many parts of this that are just so silly. I have attended and recorded QAnon conferences hosted by General Flynn where Kash Patel was a featured speaker. And the other featured speakers who General Flynn has personal relationships with and who he put on stage were doing things like speaking in tongues, calling themselves prophets. And when they talked on stage, they were doing this weird voice thing where they were saying that they were the words of God, meaning literally God was speaking through them in the moment. At this QAnon conference that I went to, I met General Flynn and I took a photo with him. So look, I hope that Kash Patel and Susie Wiles still answer Flynn's texts and calls, because I would absolutely love to sit down with an FBI agent and go through my footage from those QAnon conferences. You know what? I hope that Mike Flynn calls Jim Jordan and that they call me to testify before Congress, because the extremist connections that Kash Patel, the current FBI director, has not been well reported. The interviews that I conducted and the videos that I recorded at this QAnon conference are far worse than you've probably read about or seen, because it gets so weird that mainstream journalists, and no, this is not criticizing them, that mainstream journalists just don't have the context to cover accurately. And as a researcher who is an expert in this stuff, it's very difficult for me to explain this to the layperson, or to even write long form about it. Like, this is a book, and I don't have the time or the ability or the resources to write about this kind of level of detail. But if given the opportunity to, testify before Congress or sit down for an interview with the FBI and to hand them my data, I will gladly give them videos of Kash Patel and Mike Flynn on stage with people who are actively calling for civil war, telling QAnon freaks to arm themselves and to stockpile weapons and ammunition. So, Mike Flynn, I'm not going to be intimidated. In fact, I'm glad that you finally recognize that I'm a thing, because this gives me an opportunity to share my work. So, thank you, Mike. Merry Christmas.